And we think that China will be the world's biggest Christian country relatively quickly, and we think it'll probably also be the world's biggest Muslim country, maybe a bit later, because Islam is also growing, particularly in the rural West. What I think is really interesting about China is, as I said, is it's the up and coming people who are joining it. Does seem to be a slight religious split. The Catholics in general are doing better in the countryside. It's the evangelical, more sort of American style stuff, which is particularly imported by Koreans, but also by Americans and also by the Chinese themselves. That's what's really moving in the cities. What is interesting to me, because again, our book is an attempt to study this phenomenon, take people inside these house churches, show what they're like, but then ask the political questions that flow from that. And the readings you get from the regime are very contradictory on this. On the one hand, it says the regime is prepared to encourage these things. Hu Jintao has said really quite nice things about religion, even about Christianity, and there's some element of certainly Confucianism the regime is quite comfortable with, because they're looking, in a sense, for glue to bring this huge country together. The level of social dislocation in China is gigantic. There's 1 year, I think it's 1998, and I may have got it wrong, where the number of people moving from the countryside to the towns in just that 1 year is greater than the number of all the people who left Europe and came to America in the 100 years before 1920. So you have social dislocation on a gigantic level, and the regime are aware of that. They're currently having to deal with lots of economic problems, and they see religion, at least, as a potential piece of glue to hold that society together. That's the sort of good side. On the other side, they are inherently worried and suspicious about religion as a sort of incendiary force. Various people have told me that the figure who the regime particularly identifies as John Paul II. They think John Paul II, they give him perhaps a too great a role in the Soviet Union's downfall, but they see parallels there. There's also a famous Chinese rebellion in the 19th century, which was led by a Christian. You see all the evidence of the Falun Gong. All those things make them uneasy. And what's happening with the house churches, as they get bigger, they're already arguably the biggest NGO in China. As they get bigger, they're starting to add things like some nurseries and all those things. The one other absolutely brilliant thing about what's happening in China, which is not brilliant, but it's fascinating, is what the regime have been doing, is the rules within China basically say, and the rules are complicated, but they sort of say when you get to 25 people, no meeting can go beyond 25 people without government approval. Well, you have 25 people in a house church. Once it gets to 27, 28, the church, because of that rule, is forced to split. And because it's forced to split, it grows. So immediately you get two groups of 12 who are out there looking for more people. So ironically, the very rules that the Chinese have introduced turn out to be the very things that make the religion grow quite as fast as it does. And that I think is a big thing.